If you're like many people, the idea of treasure in the ocean conjures up images of pirate ships, shipwrecked Spanish galleons, and the Titanic. And although it may be cliché, the idea isn't wrong. There are an estimated 3 million shipwrecks in the ocean. That's right, 3 million. These range from ships that sunk thousands of years ago to many more contemporary maritime disasters. Shipwrecks can be the result of poor design, bad weather, badly stowed cargo, human error, resulting in collisions with other vessels, or even collisions with nature itself, icebergs, shorelines, or reefs. There have also been many wreckages due to warfare. To give you an idea of just how many, the Battle of the Atlantic during World War II sank over 3,500 merchant ships, 175 warships, and 783 submarines. Which leads us to consider a second, lesser-known category of wrecks, those which were done on purpose. Most of these kinds of shipwrecks are strategic decisions. A block ship, or a wreck barrier, is when a ship is deliberately sunk to prevent a passage through something like a bay, river, or a canal. Sometimes these wreck barriers are attempts to stave off attacking forces, but occasionally an attacking force might build a wreck barrier to prevent an escape of the navy that it is attacking. And while we're counting up the wreckage, we also have to take into account the considerable number of aviation accidents which have resulted in sunken planes. Many of these wrecks have not been recovered and will contain fascinating treasure, or at least interesting information when they're found. So, now that we have a pretty good idea of how shipwrecks end up in the ocean, how do we determine how much treasure is actually in there? Although there's ultimately no consensus among marine archaeologists, some are convinced we'll never know just how much treasure lies hidden in the depths of the ocean, and some are more confident putting a price tag on what's out there. For example, 60 billion. However, putting an exact dollar value on the undiscovered treasure in the ocean is a bit of a gamble, particularly given that marine archaeologists reckon that less than 1% of the world's shipwrecks have been found, or even at least explored. To give you an idea of what could still be out there, let's consider for a moment what's already been found. Ancient shipwrecks have yielded priceless art and artifacts for us, like the ancient Greek Antikythera wreck from the 1st century BC, and carrying treasure that was even at the time hundreds of years old. Archaeologists have been able to carefully restore some statues and recovered marble bust, bronzes including lyre, and even glasswork. The shipwreck was discovered in 1900 by sponge divers and was valued at up to 160 million. One of the marble statues was dropped during the recovery efforts and lost on the ocean floor, so we can add that to our tally when we're counting up how much treasure is still left in the ocean. And over the years, there have been some other particularly striking discoveries. Even older than the Antikythera wreck was the Uluburnan shipwreck, which was found off the coast of Turkey in the 1980s and is over 3,000 years old. The discovery was considered to be the most important shipwreck ever found in the Mediterranean, for historical reasons alone. However, the contents of the excavation revealed an extraordinary collection of copper ingots and a wealth of information about Bronze-aged travel and trade. Any discussion of shipwrecks and treasure in the ocean would be missing something if we failed to mention the Titanic, one of the most famous shipwrecks in our cultural memory. Aside from the drama of the shipwreck itself and the place it holds in our contemporary imaginations, the content of the Titanic was Titanic. When the Titanic sank in 1912, it was carrying the richest and most well-to-do passengers to mark what was meant to be the most extraordinary feat in nautical engineering to date. This also meant that they had brought their finest jewels along for the voyage, and other treasures as well. Among the artifacts lost on the Titanic, which will never be recovered, were a handwritten manuscript by Joseph Conrad, first editions of essays by Francis Bacon, 5 Steinway grand pianos, and a 1912 Coupe de Ville car. A jewel-encrusted edition of the Rubaiyat, which was worth $120,000 in itself, is also missing in the wreckage. But the gold, diamonds, and the silver which were recovered by divers in the 1980s amounted to almost 200 million. The Nuestra Señora de Atocha shipwreck is considered to be the most valuable shipwreck ever discovered. The ship was carrying so much treasure that it took 2 months to load the vessel before it set sail on its way from the New World back to Spain in 1622. The galleon was caught in a hurricane off the coast of what is now Florida, and went down taking 260 lives along with it, and an extraordinary amount of treasure. 40 tons, or 80,000 pounds of gold were on board, as well as 70 pounds of Colombian emeralds, which are still some of the finest and most expensive emeralds in the world. At the time, Spanish salvors tried to recover the treasure, but the hatches were locked so tight that it could not be accessed. When a second hurricane drove the wreckage further out to sea, the ship was lost, until 1969, when Mel Fisher started looking for it in earnest. It was a dangerous exploration, and 3 members of his crew were killed when the wreckage of the Nuestra Señora's sister ship collapsed around them. In 1985, after nearly 15 years of searching, Fisher and his team finally discovered the wreckage, and for his trouble, Fisher was awarded 75% of the cargo's value by the United States Supreme Court. Swathed in mystery, the Black Swan project refers to the shipwreck of the Nuestra Señora de las Mercedes, which was sunk by the British in 1804. Its rumoured value is upwards of 500 million, but given the sheer size of the discovery, its contents and whereabouts remain unknown. Odyssey Marine Exploration discovered the wreck in the early 2000s, but when they were found to be flying over 17 tons of silver and gold coins from Gibraltar to a secure Florida location, international governments intervened and determined that the content of the shipwreck belonged to Spain. Since there is still more to discover from the wreckage, and governments fear people trying to interfere with the excavation efforts, the precise location of the wreck remains undisclosed. With these kinds of treasures having been recovered, what wonders are out there which are yet to be found? Although there are countless shipwrecks that we don't even know exist, there are a few enticing wrecks which we do know about, but just can't find. For example, in attempting to recover the missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, 2 unexpected wrecks were discovered merely by accident. Famous as one of the 3 vessels Columbus took on his exploration of the New World, the Santa Maria was wrecked on Christmas Eve 1492, running aground in what is now the present-day Haiti. Columbus deemed the ship to be beyond repair and abandoned it, but what happened to it after is completely mysterious. Experts, maritime archaeologists, historians and explorers have all been trying to locate the whereabouts of the shipwreck, to no avail. A Portuguese ship known as Le Cinco Chagas was also on its way home from a voyage to India, and had filled itself to the brim with precious stones and other treasures. Over 1 billion in diamonds, rubies and pearls were on board, when Le Cinco Chagas was attacked by a British privateer ship in 1594 and bombarded relentlessly for 2 days. Finally it caught fire, and the ship, its treasure and the 1,100 people on board were all submerged. The wreckage has never been found. An English merchant ship, known as the Merchant Royal, was on its way home to London after a trading voyage to the West Indies in the year 1641. In the final stretch of its voyage, the ship began to leak. Although the ship might have ordinarily been able to be salvaged, it had recently offered to carry additional cargo from a Spanish vessel which had caught fire. When the ship hit bad weather, its pumps broke down and the ship sank just off the coast of Cornwall, located in the United Kingdom. Although one of its anchors was recovered in 2019, the ship itself has never been found, nor the 1.5 billion in gold that was on board. Countless other treasures like these remain to be discovered. Ultimately, 95% of the ocean is still unknown to us. We are only just developing technologies which will enable us to plumb to the depths of the ocean floors, particularly in the extraordinarily deep canyons, and who knows what treasure has settled in those areas over time, not to mention the sea life at the depths of the ocean which we know almost nothing about. But diving operations are expensive, complex and dangerous, sometimes costing millions of dollars and lead to uncovering nothing. It's difficult to know what is worth investigating, and sometimes whether an object which has been identified is even actually a shipwreck worth exploring for. The good news for people who are fascinated about shipwrecks and enjoy exploring them is that many shipwrecks are near the coasts, which enables a degree of access which isn't available in the deep sea wrecks. It's seductive to think about all the cargo ships filled with gold that might still be waiting for us at the bottom of the sea. Ultimately, however, the most priceless treasure in the oceans might not be the gold on board, but the shipwrecks themselves. The wealth of information that historic wreckages can give to archaeologists is vast. Shipwrecks are a wonderful way of preserving historical information about the way seafaring, domestic life, and even warfare worked in previous centuries. And there's still so much left for us to discover. Oh, what an interesting world it is we live in. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And for more interesting videos like this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and most importantly, share. Until then, we'll see you soon in our next video.